Hey, Doc Tested, do-it-yourself alternative health. I am going to do Facebook Live here, obviously, today with my colleague Kevin Rail. We want to talk about food, fasting, and fitness, our new program. I'm going to bring Kevin in here in just a second. Here we go. Let me grab him. Hold on one second here. Should have tested this before. Hey, Matt. One second here, buddy. There we go. Hold on. Ruth. I'm adding Kevin Rail here. Might have to come back. Sorry about that. Hi, Dr. Ann. Looking for it. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Come back in 1 second. There you are, Kevin. Now I'm adding you. Thank you. All right. Hey, Eli. What's happening, buddy? Kevin, I'm trying to add you here. Okay, says it's adding you. Hate it when there's technical issues like this. Well, it's not a technical
Hello.
issue. Novice. Hey, there you are.
Wow, looks like I'm looking off to the right. I guess I gotta look to the left.
Hey, there you are.
Had to turn my phone sideways.
Good. So today, Kevin and I are going to talk about food, fasting, and fitness. And Kevin is a fitness and food guy extraordinaire and knows fasting and athletics really, really well. And I'm excited to be doing this program with you. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm super stoked to be doing it with you as well.
Yeah. So listen, if you have questions, I'm going to be going back and forth. I got my computer over here. If you have questions, do not hesitate to post them, and we'll try to answer them as best as possible. But so why are we doing this? Let me give you the lowdown, right? You've heard me speaking for a long time. I've been in healthcare a long time, and you know, there's a few things after 30 years of doing this, and you probably agree, Kevin, that really move the needle with people's health. And it's no surprise or secret to most people, except maybe one of these, but food, what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. Fitness, right? You always hear that. If you want to lose weight, get healthy, you got to eat better and move more. But then there's fasting, and fasting has become very popular. But there's a lot of misconception and confusion around it. And so we've put this together because I think it works really well. But, you know, looking at the research and the data, this kind of thing really addresses the diseases of aging. And as a healthcare provider, I'm upset that, you know, 70% of Americans are obese or overweight. And because of that, about 70% of healthcare expenditure and utilization is on chronic health problems, things that you can control, things that are under your control, you can manage to handle on your own. That's why my tagline is "Be your own doctor." And so we want to. Our promise to you is that when you're done with this, you'll know what to do, how to do it, and what I really want is for you to not need me anymore or not need Kevin. Right? You know exactly what to do. And I want you to really not need the healthcare system. Now, I'm not saying you don't need to go to a doctor for checkups or, you know, see a physician periodically, but too many Americans live on drugs. That is what keeps them alive. So that's part of my motivation in making this happen. So what do you think, Kevin? What do you have there?
I totally agree in it. And there is a time and place for everything in this world. That's the way I look at it. There's a time for doctors. There's a time for pharmaceuticals. There's a time for surgery. There's a time for supplements. There's a time for everything. But as a nation, we have become, for lack of a better term, I don't want to use the word lazy, but I mean, we've become lax a little bit because things have become so convenient for us. And it's so easy to just get a miracle drug, a miracle pill, be prescribed something and not take 100% ownership of our own self, our own bodies, etc. But there is just a wellspring of answers out there that are just floating around right in front of us all the time, within an arm's reach. And over the course of time, I feel that what we've done, you and I mean, have somewhat cracked the code on how to tap into that and how to make life so much more easy to manage by just making some very small, simple changes and steps. And I know that may sound cliche, but it really is. It's just like you can't fool Mother Nature. And things are not as complicated as they look. You don't always have to resort to said antidote that's being told to you at work or something like that you need to take and everything. It's like the body is a very well-oiled and very intelligent machine. It has a very strong way of correcting itself. It's like if you're walking down the sidewalk in the winter and you slip on ice and you're trained in very specific ways to correct your balance and your plane of motion, you can easily just stop yourself and walk away unscathed. But if you walk down the road and you just sit all the time, you're not used to balance or anything, and you step on that ice, you're going to slip and you're going to fall and break your ankle or hip or elbow or shoulder, or something bad's going to happen. Well, your healthcare is kind of the same way, and your diet is the same way, and you kind of put all these things together and turn yourself into just a machine of a man or woman, if done correctly with the right procedures and protocols.
Exactly. So we're going to address, let's just pick this apart, food, fasting, and fitness. And I'll start out with a little bit of, food, right? There's so much confusion about what to eat, but there really doesn't have to be. It comes back to very basics, and we want it to be sexy. We want it to be exotic. We want it to be, I don't know. I mean, I've dealt with patients a long time, and sometimes they don't really know what to do. Ruben, exactly. It's about the noise and the attention. And so the basics, right? Plant-based to a very large degree. Fruits, vegetables, legumes, which I'm not opposed to, nuts and seeds, and then take it and add the Mediterranean part to it with olive oil, good oils, red wine, and chocolate. I mean, did you hear me say wheat in there? Or a whole lot of grains? But there are certain amounts. So the other thing too is, what to eat, right? So what should I eat versus what should Kevin eat? And thankfully, recently, Viome, Viome, has come out with a test to really check your gut microbes. And it's interesting because we share 98% of the same DNA, but we only share 5% of the same microbiome. So what I need to eat is different than what Kevin needs to eat. We did that in our house this year. My wife's diet is completely different. We already kind of knew that going into things, but feeding that good microbiome is really important. And it's, on the microbiome, it's not saying, pizza, macaroni and cheese,
French fries,
the French fries. It's very plant-based. So our program is going to be based around plant-based foods. We will suggest, it's not mandatory, you use Viome, find out what works for you, and then lean, clean proteins. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, certainly. We the one macronutrient that we are not deficient in as a country, as a universe, actually, is protein. We get plenty of protein in our diet. You need X amount of protein, yes, for muscle building, etc. But muscles are built by breaking them down and causing micro trauma to the muscles, and then they need recovery. And it's what you do in the recovery that matters most. It's not necessarily how many wheels you can put on your bench press every single week. It's how good is your recovery? That's what you need to start thinking about. And if you're not digesting food or nutrients, all those protein shakes that you slam down after your workouts are just getting flushed right out of your system, and they're not even really going to do anything. You're probably not going to digest half of it. So you want to get your body to digest as well as good as you possibly can. And I heard this phrase years ago that made a lot of sense to me. And it's not you are what you eat. It is you are what you digest. So if you're not digesting good, you're not doing anything. You're not going to help inflammation or arthritis or brain function or skin irritations and stuff like that if you can't digest food well. Because even if you're eating clean, sometimes or most of the time, but then you're eating like really bad the rest of the time, it's gonna cancel it out. So it's one step forward, two steps back. In the big picture, yes, protein is necessary, but not in like magnanimous amounts. As long as you're getting a balance of protein in your diet every single day, and you're getting complete protein, and it doesn't have to be all from meat sources. It can be from vegan sources or plant-based, as you like to call it. As long as you're getting your base amount of nutrients, your body's gonna be totally fine. But if you're not digesting, then there's gonna be problems. So if you get like a container of sprouts, let's go that far. Alfalfa sprouts, really delicious. And you eat that container of alfalfa sprouts, it's actually got a decent amount of absorbable protein in it. It doesn't have 30 grams of protein like a protein shake. But if you're not absorbing well and you do a protein shake after a workout and you got 30 grams of protein, and you may not absorb any of that. And you may have problems with absorption of animal products you may not know. And then you can have like a whole tub of alfalfa sprouts, and that's going to digest way better, and it's going to do way more wonders for your body. So it's very relative to how good you digest and how good your body is utilizing the nutrients that you're feeding it.
Yeah. So look, if you have friends, family members that need to hear this, please share this out with them, because what we're going to talk about, what we are talking about, addresses all the diseases of aging in America. We spend more money on healthcare in America and are the sickest nation in the world. And it's absolutely crazy. We're the most drugged, and what are the diseases? Diabetes, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, arthritis, and dementia. These are all revolving around inflammation. And so if you know someone who could learn this, please share, who needs to hear this, please share this with them. I want to talk about protein for a second, Kevin, because that's so, like, even me. I mean, I thought, and especially with low carb or keto, everyone thinks, or paleo, that you just need to eat millions of tons and grams of protein. And, my question back to people is, if we ate like our ancestors, or even 40 years ago, really, before we had this obesity issue in America, but I look at my grandparents, they did not have access to 10 chicken breasts and 250 grams of protein a day, like a lot of people do here. And so out of USC, Walter Longo, the PhD who's done the most research on aging and prolonged fasting, has identified these pathways. And I want to talk about this for a second, but then come back to the 3 different types of fasting. These pathways are upregulated by a lot of protein. And what are these pathways? These pathways are insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, TOR, and protein kinase A. These pathways are what are called nutrient sensing pathways, and they get turned on by constant stimulation from glucose and too much protein, and then they upregulate everything. What do they upregulate? Inflammation. IGF-1 is identified in all cancers, so it turns on all those genes, the genes of aging and the cancer genes. And so in his book, which we'll talk about a little bit more, the longevity diet, he really talks about these 5 different pillars that he looks at before recommending nutritional programs. And these pillars are epidemiological studies, the centenarians, clinical studies, complex systems, and one other I don't recall right off the top of my head. So when he's giving these recommendations, they're mashed up. And what is best? What is best across the line? And guess what? It's not a ton of protein. It's usually plant-based proteins, because the animal proteins are so high in amino acids that it turns these pathways on like crazy. Where if you're mixing, like you're saying, some plant, some animal protein, but not every day, not all day, you are stimulating your body to be healthy, but you're not overstimulating it, turning on all these pathways of aging. So again, IGF, TOR, and protein kinase A, totally turned on high with too much protein, too many amino acids, and way too much glucose. What do you think about that?
Well, I have 2 things I'd like to add to that. One of which is I want to clear the air on the keto diet, first of all. And secondly, I want to circle back to the grazing if you will, or the small frequent feedings. We need to address that.
Drives me crazy, grazing.
So first of all, the keto diet is not like eat as much protein until your eyes pop out of your head, like a lot of people misunderstand it to be. It actually does have validity, and it is not a bad plan at all, because protein itself does have an actual effect on glycogen, which a lot of people don't think so because it's protein. And that's one of the reasons why when you're fasting, you definitely shouldn't have anything that has to do with any kick of glucose whatsoever. So obviously carbohydrates will do that. And protein does have an effect on glucose as well. So when you're eating a ton of protein and a ton of fat, which most people just like blindly do, oftentimes do on the keto diet, you're doing yourself an injustice and an inservice, because you're still going to have an effect of glycogen, and you're going to get this massive amount of protein, like you just said, which is not necessarily a good thing for the body. So in reality, the keto diet is actually more high fat, and it's moderate protein and low carb. So it's completely almost opposite of what most people think. And when you do it scientifically and correctly, it actually is a valid plan. And you can get plenty of fiber in your diet too if you eat a lot of like cruciferous vegetables that are also low in carb, and avocados and good sources of seeds and nuts and stuff that are high in fiber as well. So you can totally get away with a healthy version of the keto diet if you do it correctly. So I just want to clear there on that first of all. Secondly,
Ruben said grazing is for cows.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the whole grazing thing, on paper, it makes sense. So you eat a small meal every 2.5 to 3 hours. This is basically old school bodybuilding mentality. The idea is that your nitrogen levels stay high, which is a substrate of protein, which offers you good muscle preservation, so to speak. And also, every time you eat a couple hours, your energy levels stay high, your body burns calories, and your metabolism stays high because your body's always burning calories to digest food. Okay, that makes kind of sense, I guess. And yeah, I did it years ago, and I think all of us have tried it. So yeah, your energy level stays pretty high and balanced and all these other things. But here's what happens. Even if you're eating balanced meals that contain even a scant amount of carbohydrates, your blood sugar is going to rise slightly to stabilize the carbohydrate intake that you take. So every time your blood sugar elevates even slightly, so does insulin. So blood sugar comes up to about here, and it kind of goes like this. It starts going down, the meal comes back up. It starts going down, the meal comes back up. So your blood sugar kind of just goes like this all day long. Blood sugar stable, energy level stable, you feel $1,000,000, great. But here's where the problem comes in. When your blood sugar is like this all day, where it could be down here because you're not eating, it's up here. So it's not super high, but it's up here. This is up here, blood sugar. But guess what else is right behind it? Insulin. So your pancreas is slowly going like this all day, releasing insulin. So literally, you're asking your pancreas to release insulin all day, and then you go to bed at night. So that's a problem. That's just like driving your car from West Coast to East Coast, parking it somewhere, and just leaving it sit idle instead of turning it off. Eventually, your car's going to run out of gas. Eventually, your car's going to run into problems. Well, the body's the same way, and the pancreas can only release so much insulin in your life. And that's why, as you get older, people develop diabetes, because the pancreas is shutting down and it's no longer able to release insulin to stabilize the blood sugar, because you follow systems like this for so many years in a row. So the 6 meals a day thing and the 5 meals a day is actually an inaccurate plan to follow. And that's exactly what happens from an anatomical, physiological standpoint. That is what happens. And that's why it's not the best option to go with.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And the insulin resistance, like Elisa says here, when you constantly have high levels of glucose because you're doing this, or you're eating just refined carbohydrates, and you're right, the pancreas can only release so much insulin, and then the body becomes resistant to it. And then, and it's a vicious cycle. Then they give you drugs, or I see people who take metformin and other medications to manage their glucose, but sometimes that stops working and they start pumping insulin injections. And insulin is the storage hormone.
Right.
It is the storage hormone. It makes you store fat. So it is just the most vicious cycle. Humans were designed to go periods of time without eating.
Yeah.
We didn't have the grocery store. We didn't have the convenience store. We didn't have the gas station. We didn't have the vending machine. It's amazing how much food is around us and how often we put it into our mouth. And our humans were never, ever designed for this. And look, I just want to drop this one. If you haven't read the book Sapien, it's a history of Homo sapiens and how we evolved here. It's awesome because you learn that, hunters and gatherers managed just fine. They never got fat, obviously. They didn't have all kinds of chronic health diseases, but they went periods of time without feeding. Let's talk about that a little, Kevin. There's 3 types of fasting that are that people that are available to people, but I think people really only know about 2. But I want to start with the one that most of us do on a daily basis, and I hope you do if you're listening. It's called time-restricted feeding or time-restricted eating. Some people call it intermittent fasting, but we're going to define all of these. Time-restricted eating is eating within a certain window of time, and largely around our circadian rhythm, right? When the sun comes up, all the hormones turn on, including digestive hormones and digestive chemicals. And there's been plenty of studies that show eating late at night or eating at night causes all kinds of health problems because the system is not really working very well because the hormones aren't on. So time-restricted feeding or eating, and there's been a lot of research out of the Salk Institute by Dr. Panda. It shows a couple things. So when you're eating, say, an 8-hour window or a 10-hour window, a couple things happen. And when you're doing it with the circadian rhythm, is gut health heals. Now this is in mice, but he's starting to study it in humans. Leaky gut problems heal up, and the gut microbiome gets healthier. So time-restricted feeding, and we're going to implement that into our program here. And if you're not used to doing it, we're going to gradually get you up to those windows where it's optimal to eat. Another kind of fasting is called intermittent fasting, and it's typically what we get confused. That's what a lot of people call time-restricted feeding is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, though, by definition, is usually 16 to 48 hours. And I'm going to let Kevin talk about that in a second because he's a pro at that one. And then prolonged fasting, which we're going to implement into this program as well, which is 48 hours plus. How are we going to implement it? We're going to implement it with something that's been clinically studied and is safe and has a lot of evidence for doing a lot of good things. And it's with Prolon, where you're able to eat but be in a fasted state for 5 days and get all the benefits of a 5-day fast that typically used to be done with just water, now that you can actually eat. Because since they've identified these pathways of TOR, IGF, and protein kinase A, they know that a plant-based, low glucose, higher fat diet does not turn these pathways on, and the body thinks it's fasting. So, Kevin, you want to talk a little bit more about these 3 different types of fasting?
Yeah, you said it really well. People just lump all of the fasting protocols into intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is the big buzzword. IF, I'm doing IF. I'm like, great. What does your protocol look like? Well, I eat between, and then like someone mumbles a little bit. So to just put it there, to paraphrase again what Mark was saying, intermittent fasting and time-restricted feeding, basically time-restricted feeding or time-restricted eating as you may know it, it's sort of a derivative of intermittent fasting. It is anytime you're like alternating between a window of time that you're eating or fasting, it's basically as intermittent fasting, but they're basically 2 different things. So the time-restricted feeding window can be anywhere from 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of an eating window, and then coupled with a longer fasting window. So when you're doing time-restricted feeding, your goal should be, the very basic goal should be, make sure that your fasting window is longer than your eating window. Bottom line right there. So even if you did like, say, 13 hours of fasting, and then you ate in an 11-hour window and had like 3 meals or something, you're still doing time-restricted feeding, and you're still going to experience benefits for your body. So at the bare minimum, that should be where you aim for. Because really the real benefits of fasting begin at 12 hours. It's like your body is running programs. It's like a computer regenerating programs. If you're sitting there working on your computer and it says have to shut down for updates, well, it's kind of like the same thing. Your body starts flipping back around. Homeostasis starts to occur. Your system gets time to start rejuvenating and replenishing. And it all really starts at 12 hours. So if you can just stretch that into another hour after that, then you're really going to start tapping into the benefits. So that's time-restricted feeding. And like you said, intermittent fasting is like you're intermitting on days, more or less. So a common protocol people follow is they just eat normally, like 5 out of 7 days. And then 2 days during the week, they'll do like a 24-hour fast. And then, like, say, they just choose like Monday and Thursday because it's most convenient for them or something, or it's their most busy days at work. So that would be intermittent fasting. And then on the other days, they just eat like a normal schedule, like whenever they eat, they eat. There are still benefits with that. And that is still very, very good for your body. Don't get me wrong. Now, if you integrate a few of these modalities together and you do time-restricted feeding most of the time in conjunction with intermittent fasting, and then you throw in a longer fast once a month, that is what I have developed over the months and over the years. And I absolutely love this plan. So basically what I follow is a 16-8 window every single day of the week. And then twice a week, I do 24-hour fasts. And then once a month, I do a 48-hour fast. And I have developed, now again, we're all abstract creatures out there. So this, what works best for me is not going to work best for Mark or not his wife or like all of you people out there watching right now. It depends on what works best for you. So there's a range you can go through. If you want to just scratch the surface and get the bare minimum benefits, you can do as small as 12 and 12 even. You're still going to get benefits. Right. And then you got to start looking at your diet though and what you're eating. And it always still comes down to what is the fare that you're consuming in your body. And Mark and I, we specialize in trying to improve the microbiome like he was talking about, optimize hormones, optimize energy, optimize brain function through the medium of what you're eating and consuming. Because there are a lot of tricks of the trades you can add into your diet that are going to help in all those areas. So I've been working religiously on all those things. And of course, muscle building and muscle preservation is my forte as well. So I feel like I've been cracking the code on all these things through a lot of experimentations and sacrifices. So those basically are the principles behind the fasting protocols. And when you're getting into like the 48 plus hours of fasting, you know, the rule of thumb is you shouldn't go more than 3 days without being medically supervised. I think that's a little bit far-fetched, to be honest with you. If you have like a chronic condition, like if you're literally trying to heal something, psoriasis, arthritis, you know, chronic migraine headaches, diabetes, something like that, then absolutely I would suggest if you're going to do 3 or more days, then it should be medically supervised. But if you're just like a normal person, you don't really have any major conditions, you're overweight, you're tired, you're lethargic, you drink too much coffee, and you just want to change the game for yourself, then I don't see anything wrong with going 3 or more days, water fasting and sea salt, and that's it. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, you know, so caveat to all that is if you're on metformin and you're on insulin, don't fast.
Well, that's
you
true.
can't.
Yeah,
don't even do it. Don't try it. Yeah. We can't help you. It's a whole other thing because those drugs change how your body will adapt, right? Because our body will adapt to no food by breaking down fat. So like Kevin's saying, the first 12 to, depending on how long, 24 hours, your body uses up its glucose in the blood. It uses up its stored glucose in the liver called glycogen. And then after 24 hours, it starts looking for other sources of fuel and it starts to burn fat and convert that. But if you're on those medications, it does not work very well and you'll tank because you won't be able to access your reserves. So I agree to a large extent with what you're saying. Now, I did a 4-day water fast in January and it really reset everything for me. Like I started eating so much better. I was able to do time-restricted feeding so much easier. I lost and kept off about 10 pounds. Wow. I just got back to my physical. My lipids got better. Abdominal fat went down, etc. So, you know, if you're younger and healthier, 3 days or more is doable. But that's what I like about this is you are still getting micronutrients and macronutrients to a large extent as well. But you're not just doing water. And so it makes it just a little bit easier for people to do a prolonged fast. Let me tell you a little bit about what the benefits are of intermittent fasting. These are clinical studies. So fat mass decreases, muscle mass is retained.
Yeah, look at that. Those guns.
Leptin decreases. I want you to mention something about leptin here in a minute. Kevin, glucose, triglycerides, insulin, LDL, all improves. And there is some small amount of evidence for cellular autophagy, which is when the body uses old, weak cells for energy. Autophagy is basically the body eating itself. And so it's not eating protein. It's not eating lean body mass. It's eating the dead cells or the weak cells. Really.
I call it the rogue. I call it the rogue cells, like the ones that are out to cause problems and damage. It's like It's like walking down an alley in one of the most sketchy neighborhoods of, like, I don't know, North Philly or something like that, and seeing all these hoodlums running around causing chaos, and like this big gust of wind just comes and blows them all to smithereens right off the streets. It's kind of like that. It's like your body's cleansing system and cleansing process. And autophagy is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And that's a place you should aspire to get to. The catch is, though, like you were saying, I have reason to believe you can start scratching the surface of autophagy over the course of time when you're doing time-restricted feeding, especially if you're getting more like the 16-hour to 18-hour windows of fasting every single day. And I'm talking like over the duration of time, months. However, to actually get into autophagy, it's not uncommon to have to go 2 or 3 days plus of fasting to get there in the first place. And I think it all revolves around how clean your diet is when you start fasting and how clean your diet is before you go along with one of these longer fasts. So to put this in perspective, if you eat clean and you just start fasting, and then you go to like a 24 to 48 hour fast, you have a better shot of getting into autophagy in that 24 to 48 hour time span than, say, someone who's been eating junk food all along and then jumps into that 24 to 48 hour time span. It would take them a lot longer to get into, just jump right into autophagy. So it is a wonderful place to be, and you should always aspire to get there.
Yeah, and autophagy, you know, the Nobel Prize in medicine last year was given to a scientist out of Japan who really discovered and really experimented more on autophagy, and it cleans up like rogue cells. What are those? Well, they're weak and crappy white blood cells. They are precancerous cells. Cancer cells are stupid. They live on glucose. When you don't feed them for a while, they die. So autophagy, even if you just fast for 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3, 4 days times a year, you are cleaning house and losing weight and just doing a lot of benefit for the body. Let's move over to more of a prolonged fast, which we will do 1 week a month in our program here. So we're gonna teach how to eat. We're gonna give you the right recommendations. We'll share our foods. I've been taking pictures of my food for a long time. I know Kevin has as well. And so we'll share all that. If you want to try Viome and really get specific, I can't recommend it enough. I can help you get that. But the prolonged fast, we will do 5 days of this every month for 3 months. And that's where the clinical studies of Prolon shine. It shows in the clinical study, so these are preclinical. So this isn't mouse studies, and then I'll get to the human studies. Extended lifespan, induced a stress resistance, and promoted visceral fat loss. That's the abdominal fat. Somebody asked me on an interview, what's the best test to find out your health? I said, you don't need a test. Go in the bathroom, turn sideways, and if you have a big belly, if you have an abdomen that's sticking out, you're not healthy. All that abdominal and visceral fat causes inflammation and really just messes up everything. The clinical studies in Prolon, after 3 months of doing this, 1 week a month, maintained healthy levels of glucose, triglycerides, LDL, total cholesterol, blood pressure, promoted weight loss, and maintained lean body mass. It maintained lean body mass. And so that's the big thing, because people think too frequently that if they're not eating 6 meals a day, they're grazing, that they're going to lose lean body mass or their metabolism is going to shut down. Nope. And in the studies, preclinical in animals, you know, the brain and the testicles are highly maintained energetically, because if we shut down, we're not going to go look for food, and we're not going to reproduce. And so this is just a big myth. Will you talk about your result of 48 hours and what happened with your metabolism?
Sure. People are always saying like, oh, I got to eat something. My metabolism is going to shut down. I'm going to gain weight and blah, blah, blah. I was blind years and years ago, probably my late teens, when I was reading research on all that stuff about, oh yeah, you got to eat all the time and keep your metabolism stoked and all this stuff. Well, I did last week I did a 48-hour fast, and I got a resting metabolic rate test done on myself, and my resting metabolic rate was above normal, and my overall number was 2,700 calories. That's what I needed according to the test for maintenance, which is really high in my opinion. after a 48-hour fast, mind you. So it goes to show that fasting or going without food for a long time does not slow your metabolism down. In fact, it probably boosts it. And I'm going to do the same thing with, today I'm doing 24-hour fast. I'm going to head down and get another test today, and I'm going to do it with 16 hours. And I want to compare and contrast. And I'm guessing they're probably all going to be pretty close to each other. So showing that it doesn't matter if if your window is 16 hours or 24 or 48, your metabolism is still going to stay relatively high. And I think there's way too many factors involved to say that, oh yeah, you got to eat every couple hours, keep your metabolism racing. That's not true at all. I don't buy it.
Hey, Ruben, how do you know when you're there? I presume you're asking, Ruben, like, how do you know when you're in autophagy? It just comes after three or 4 days of fasting. After you've burned all. So Dr. Longo uses a great analogy. You're on a train. It's a coal-fired train. You burn through all the coal. You're not quite to your destination yet. The coal's the glucose and the glycogen. So what do you start doing? You start taking the crappy seats that are broken down, and you start burning that as fuel. Those are the same thing. Those are the cells that our body starts using after it's used up all the glucose and glycogen. That's when you get into autophagy, is 3 days kind of plus, where you're really, consuming all those rogue cells. The flip side of that then is like, oh, well, I've just consumed so much of my body. What's going to happen? Well, and if you know someone who needs to hear this, will you please share this with them and let them know a little bit more about our program? We'll get into that in a second. But what's the body do after it consumes all that? And this has been studied and shown in the Prolon clinical studies on humans. The body releases a massive amount of stem cells when you start eating, because it knows it needs to rebuild you. So you get this massive amount of stem cells, mesenchymal stem cells, and hemopoietic blood stem cells get released up to 600% increase for a couple days after eating. And
that's called the stem cell dump.
The stem cell dump.
Yeah,
exactly.
What happens.
You're not going in the toilet. You're not tanking. You are actually cleaning house and rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And the fact that there's a clinical study now, and it's been done on humans, and it shows sort of what probably people have known for a long time but never been able to prove, is that a prolonged fast actually is very beneficial to the body. Joanne, what are stem cells? Stem cells are these pregenerative cells. They're cells that live in our body. They live in our bone marrow, and they get released to heal the body. So we would not heal from a cut or anything if we didn't have stem cells. And then these stem cells are, they turn into things: muscle, bone, ligament, tendon, blood, brain, central nervous system cells. So they're basic cells that help stimulate our body to heal. So I know we're running in a little bit of extra time here, but let's just quickly talk about fitness and exercising in a fasted state, because you're a pro at this. And, of course, everybody thinks it's dangerous, or, well, maybe they don't, but can you address that?
I don't really
you're the subject of a research study.
I don't think people necessarily think it's dangerous, but they think it's crazy. I get that a lot from people, and they think they're going to tank. They think they're going to pass out. They think they're going to bonk. They're going to think all these horrible things are going to happen. And usually the body follows what the mind tells it to do. So if you think that all that's going to happen, you'll probably placebo yourself to passing out. Yes. But in reality, you can go miles and miles of distance. And I don't mean that, I mean that figuratively, without having to eat. I mean, when I do 48-hour fasts, I wake up in the morning on the first day, I work out, I go about my business the rest of the day. I wake up the next day, fasted 36 hours, and I work out again. I don't miss a beat. I just keep on trucking. The body has a way to adapt. The body's not stupid. That's how the autophagy thing works. It goes to the rogue cells first. It doesn't break down good tissue, breaks down bad tissue. When it comes to working out, I aim for a minimum of 10 hours before my workouts, but ideally I like to get 12 hours plus before I work out. So I try to wrap up my eating as early as I can in the evenings, and then I get to the gym early in the morning. And I have found the greatest success at the 12-hour plus mark when it comes to working out. When you work out in a fasted state, the longer the fast, usually, actually the golden window is like 19 to 21 hours from what I've researched. When you get to that point, you work out, your body goes into a mode where it's kind of like a fight or flight thing. And this dates back to like centuries ago, like when Mark was talking about our ancestors living the earth back then and what they were eating. Well, back then as well, they would go and they would eat for 2 or 3 days in a row from like a wild buffalo they killed or something like that, right? And they have some seeds and some berries or whatever. But that food would run out, and then they would have to go and like run for miles to either run for their lives from wild animals trying to kill them, or they'd be chasing after wild animals with spears trying to kill them. So they were very physically active as well. So they had to be able to work out basically in a fasted state. So if you work out in a fasted state, your body is going to go into this mode where it's going to be wondering, where's the food? There's no food here. Okay, well, what do I need to do? I need to preserve what I have. I need to make sure I'm strong. So your body releases growth hormone and testosterone, two of the highest, most important hormones in the body for muscle preservation and muscle gaining. So when you get that high release of growth hormone and testosterone, there's only one thing that happens. You get lean muscle mass. It's that simple. And then after you're done working out, people are always like, I need to eat immediately after, or my muscle's going to catabolize. Well, that's not true either. If you're maybe 2 to 4% body fat, give or take, and you're a bodybuilder and you have the competition coming up and you don't eat afterward for 5 or 6 hours, yeah, maybe then you'll have a little bit of catabolism and your muscle will break down. But on the average, if you literally have like 1 pound of fat on your body, you're going to be able to go for hours after your workout without having to worry about your muscles being broken down, which is catabolization. So, I mean, I worked out at 5 today. I won't eat until 5:40 tonight, 12 hours after my workout started. And I feel fine. Like right now, I feel amazing. And I'll feel great when I eat. And when I do eat, I'm going to get that same feeling I would as if I slammed a smoothie right after my workout. So what I'm getting across to you is don't be afraid to fast after your workouts. I don't feel that any of that has been proven that you have to have something to eat immediately after. Yeah, it makes sense. Your muscles are like sponges because you just burn your glycogen or whatever. But I mean, you got to be super, super nutrient deficient in order for that to be a problem. And you have to have like 0% body fat for that to be a problem as well. So to me, I mean, I work out for an hour and a half in the morning, and then I'll go to the park in the afternoon, work out for another hour and a half, practice some restorative arts tool stuff. I'll go for a bike ride. I'll go for a hike. I'll go slacklining. I'll do whatever. And then finally, I'll eat hours later in the afternoon. And I still feel I got plenty of energy the whole time.
And when you work out in the morning in a fasted state, right, you burn, and hadn't eaten since dinner, your body's used up glucose and glycogen throughout the night. And then you work out, and where's it going to go for fuel? Fat. And so it's a great way to start to burn fat and lose weight. Quick question on Mike's asking, benefits for a 60-plus-year-old. Mike, that's a great question. And in Walter Longo's lab, they noticed at about 65, some of this stuff reverses, right? So you need to, as a 65-year-old, actually have more protein. Otherwise, you're not eating your lean body mass. You're just not maintaining it. So yeah, after 60, 65, you do need a little bit more protein to maintain that. And, if you want to do a fasting mimicking diet like this, I think you may need a little bit of supervision, but you also got to make sure, like Kevin's saying, you have enough body fat, because that is going to be where you're going to get your stored energy. If you're 60, 65-year-old super thin, your muscles have deteriorated, because after 40, most Americans lose a pound of muscle and gain a pound of fat.
Yeah.
So it could be, I don't want to say detrimental, but it just needs to be proceeded with a little bit of caution. So our 12-week program talks about food and what to eat and when to eat and how to eat. We talk about fasting, and we start off with people doing a 12-hour fast, and then the next week it's a 13-hour or time-restricted eating, and we sort of increase. The last week of the month, we do a prolonged fasted mimicking diet, and it lasts for 3 months. We're coaching you, we're helping you, we're available for questions, and so we've been doing this. I've done. I'm going to be on my second prolonged fast here very shortly. That's why I have the kit here. So we have experience in doing this. Let me answer a quick question here. Joanne asks about feeling tired or fatigued. Let me see, where is it? Her body's pretty fit. She's a fit snowboarder in Canada.
Nice.
But a little bit slow now and tired feeling. does that have to do anything with the stem cells? You know, it could be a lot of things. Could be anemia. It could be your body's not used to burning fat efficiently. And that's where I think, you know, forcing it to with intermittent fasting and time restricted feeding kind of forces it to learn that way. In America, most people, we eat glucose and sugary crap all the time and high fructose corn syrup, and it never has a chance to learn how to burn fat. And so it doesn't know how to burn fat. And so people's energy tank, and they're tired and they're sluggish and they got mental fog. And going after a quick fix of sugar is not the solution.
Yeah. And I want to add something to that. I'm going to revert back to the working out in fasted state too. When you do work out in fasted state over the duration of time, your body becomes fat adapted, meaning it basically wants to burn fat for energy. It would be the same thing as like ketosis. People always talk about follow the keto diet. You get in ketosis, your body becomes fat adapted. Well, the same thing can happen through the medium of time restricted feeding and fasting too. And that really is what you want to eventually evolve yourself into doing, is getting fat adapted. And when you become fat adapted, that's when you get like really deep benefits and all that kind of stuff happens. And that's when your energy levels start going up, and you kind of just, you know, all that fatigue and everything is just short term. It goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to get started on this next month. If you would like to know more about it, please private message Kevin or I. It's 3 months. We will have weekly Zoom coaching calls. We'll be available in a Facebook Live group. We're going to address, again, food, what to eat, how to prepare it, what are plant-based meals, how much protein specifically should you be eating, what kind of fats, where can you get fats, what are plant-based fats, how do I know if I'm getting an adequate amount of protein. We're going to be doing time-restricted eating, increasing that every week. We're going to do a once a month prolonged fast. And Kevin has some awesome exercise related bonuses that he's going to be throwing in. What are those, Kevin?
Well, I have a home workout program called my 6-pack challenge, which you can do in 10 by 10 square feet of space anywhere that you're traveling or at home. I made it specifically for people that have a hard time getting to a gym or don't want to go to a gym or travel a lot. And the only tools you'll ever need are things you can find in your household or that you can get at a local grocery store. And that actually is 6 months long. So you're getting a whole 6-month program just for going with that 3-month program.
Awesome. And my cousin Connie is here. Hey, Connie, I'm glad you joined in. Hey, also, we will also throw in the fasting video that our mutual friend and who's on this, Doug Orchard, did. If you haven't seen that, that is such a great video and expose on fasting. He covers it really, really well. We're going to throw that in, and I'm going to see if I can get this book for everyone, The Longevity Diet. It is, you know, I've been interested in nutrition and a nutritional biochemistry geek since I started lifting weights in 9th grade, right? When you started comparing.
Yeah, those old DP weights, yeah.
So, but when I read this book, it really made a lot of sense because of the 5 pillars that he goes through before he starts recommending nutritional ideas. And largely a lot of it's Mediterranean, and he pushes pescatarian. But what I really like is he looks at all these 5 different studies. And when you look at the blue zones or the centenarians, you know, the people that live over 100, they all have low levels of insulin-like growth factor. They don't overeat. They eat 2, maybe 2.5 meals a day. It's very plant-based. And so we're going to get into a lot of that, and we'll help you refine what is specific to you. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you see that you're going to get a lot of good support from us, and we're going to bring this from a science and evidence-based standpoint. We're not going to just fly off the cuff. And it's not perfect for everyone. If you're on diabetes medications, this is not for you, and you know, you need more medical supervision, and maybe we can steer you in a direction like Dr. Fung, who does medical supervision fasting to get this stuff turned around. If you have questions, please private message Kevin or I. We can give you more details. Joanne, one last question. How do I know if I'm okay for a fast? You know, if
I get asked
if
that
you're
question sometimes too, and I'm like, everybody's okay for a fast as long as, like you said, Mark, if you're not on any kind of like strict directions from your doctor that you have to take medications for your specific ailment or whatever with food or etc. Because I do know people who fast that are on medications, but they don't need to take them with food, or they take them in their eating window. It's totally fine with them. So I think fasting is for everyone, and I think it's totally fine. And when you start small and grow tall with it, that's what makes it work. It's like some people jump right into it too deep and too fast, and that's why they fall off the wagon. They want to do 20 hours of fasting, or like 24 once a week, and they're like, oh, I can't go 2 hours. Oh, I was gonna pass out. I was so hungry. I was ravenous. I had to cave in. Well, that's because you tried to, no pun intended, bite off more than you can chew. So fasting is for everyone, and you just got to wean yourself in. And I mean, literally start with 12-12. 12 hours on fasting and 12 hours eating window. You could just start right there. That's your best.
Start today.
Yeah, you can start right now.
Start today.
Yeah.
And just be done eating by 7 o'clock at night,
yeah.
and do it again. And try to eat with your circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. So great point here. Michelle, thanks for tuning in. I want to recommend again, if you know somebody who would benefit from this information, please share it out with them. Metabolic health conditions, all the conditions of diseases of aging. And that's why over 50, we see an increase in all these diseases of aging, from dementia to diabetes, to heart disease, to cancer, to arthritis. It's because we've been stimulating the hell out of those nutrient sensing pathways with way too much protein, way too much glucose. This is a way to really reset the whole system. And again, my goal has always been what it is since I've been in practice. I don't want you to need me ever again. I want you to be your own doctor. I want you to know how to eat. I want you to know that you can go 12 hours without food and not die. I want you to know how to exercise, which, Kevin's going to give us all that great information. And I want you to feel confident that when you show up at the doctor, he's not going to put you on some drugs that you need to live on the rest of your life. These things come with side effects. They're super expensive. You start taking more than one, and it's called polypharmacy. I just read a study that they think that all medications are causing more depression in people because they're just messing up our systems. So, yeah, long goodbye. Anything else, Kevin?
No, that's it. But like I said, make sure to follow Mark and I, whoever's out there watching right now, currently, because we always put out a lot of good information on our feeds. And again, if you have any questions or comments at all, feel free to give us a shout, PM us, or just jump into one of our walls and let us know, and we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah. Awesome. Private message us. We'll tell you more about it. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Start with 12-hour fast today. All right. We'll see you soon, and hope to see you in our program. Thanks, Kevin. Yep. Appreciate it.
See y'all later.
Thanks for showing up.
Bye.
Bye-bye.